to be dealing with how the web work. Remember in my last class, I said something about how the website work. I'm going to tell you about how the website work behind the scene, like what you don't see. What many people assume is that browsers know everything. Well, let me correct something. Browsers don't know nothing. Browsers don't know anything. Well, what actually happens is that when you browse, when you go into your browser and type in a URL or something you are looking for, the browser goes to the cloud. Let me bring out something I used to explain. So now this is just a sample of an illustration. Now the monitor for the browser, this for the cloud, the www, that is the World Wide Web. You have the server, you have the files going up and down before it comes to the user. Then we have the domain and database. So now when users insert a URL into their browsers and click the search button, what happens here is that the URL goes to the web, and from there the URL locates using that domain in the URL. Using the domain in URL now, like look at this example of a URL, this web.mysite.com. Now we have the domain, the subdomain, and the page you are looking for. Now here you see that the web is a subdomain and the mysite.com is the domain name. So now it first looks for this domain name, this mysite.com. It goes to the server in that here. Now it comes here and looks for a server, for the server containing that domain name. Now it finds the server, then looks for like the domain name. It goes to that particular domain in that server. When it finds that domain, now if the URL contains a subdomain, which is for here in this example the web, it now goes into that domain, goes into the domain and look for that subdomain now called the web, and it's in that subdomain all your information will be contained. So in that subdomain you can see maybe there's a page named index.html. Now it now goes there, fetch the page called the index.html. Now when it gets that page, now see what happens. It doesn't just display the page to you. Now it gets that, because if it displays the page just like that, it displays it to the tags, the HTML tags, PHP codes and everything. So now what it does, if it now sends the scripts back to the browser now is the one who does the work of passing HTML documents. As when I say passing, it goes through and the code, like it makes it more user friendly to read. So it decodes everything and puts it in a more user friendly way so that users can read the documents. So it passes the HTML code. If there are CSS codes attached to that particular HTML document, it goes and passes the CSS documents. All these things are going on and it happens within a twinkle of an eye. You don't know, you may think nothing happened, but these are actually things that happens before you see document. Then if there are JavaScript can be processed at the front end. So its browser too can actually process JavaScript. So but when you use something like PHP now, the whole movement changes, because PHP is a back-end programming language. So when you use PHP now, the server now comes here, now sends the document to the browser. The browser passes the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript document. Once it reaches a PHP tag, that is a tag containing PHP now, it sends the document back to the server, telling the server that, hey, this document contains PHP file. So I need your PHP engine, that is if the server contains one. I need your PHP engine to pass this for me, decode this for me. So the server takes that file back, decodes, that is the server, takes the file back, decodes and passes through all the HTML, the PHP documents, sends it back to the browser. The browser continues with the passing of HTML document. If at all the browser encounters any PHP tag again, it sends it back to the server. The server processes the PHP document and sends it back to you. This is the back and forth movement and go on between server and browser before you finally get the information. And let's say maybe that PHP code now requests you to go back to the database to fetch information now, what you do, it now sends, carry those information now you want, that is the columns or the fields of that information you want to fetch now, give and now go to the database. Now the PHP engine now is the one going to the database, nothing else can access there, or if at all there is any means of accessing, the browser isn't the one to access the database. So it now goes to the database, fetch the information, arrange it the way it's meant to be, and send it back to the browser. So if you see now, browsers have no business with backends. Browser has no storage. Browser doesn't know everything. Browsers, their work is just to fetch information from servers. Servers are the one containing the informations you need, or database are the one storing informations you need. Servers contain the scripts for users to read. So this is just the general illustration. Browser sends URL to the internet. The internet goes search for this domain URL, fetch the information, and sends it back. If it's just normal HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or if there are PHP codes, it sends it back to the server for processing. If there are database, if there are information needed from the database, it goes to the database, fetch information, come back. When the whole passing of PHP is done, it sends the information back to the browser. The browser finishes the passing and displays it to you to see. See how I explain it. See the time it took for me to explain it. But these things, if you are using the computer to it, happens in the twinkle of an eye, and you won't know all this went through. You just think it's just something that the browser knows everything, and you just type in and everything happens like magic. No, there are processes needed. Even the communication between the browser and server, if I go deeper, you see there are more there to know. But for now, let's just stick to the basics. Okay. Then, to explain the URL more now, because many people usually make mistakes when they are talking of URL. URL meaning Uniform Resource Locator, which is recently now known as URI, which is Uniform Resource Uniform Resource. Okay, I can't really remember that because it is new. What I usually know is the Uniform Resource Locator. Okay, so when I remember the URI, I'll say it again. I'll say it, but for now, let's stick with URL. So URLs usually appear like this. Okay, you have the domain. If at all it contains a subdomain, you have the subdomain domain. Then you have a slash. Now I'll tell you that okay, we are going inside now of this domain. So we now go into the domain. Then you have a page. Okay, let's assume that in that domain now, if you enter that domain, there is no page. What you just see is folders containing other maybe folders or pages. When you go into that domain, you go into the folder again. After moving into the folder, now you have a slash again before you now talk of the page. Okay, so if you look at this now, I've already given an example describing or defining all of them. You have the web, which is this. You have the web, this is the subdomain, the mysite.com, which is the domain, and the index.html, which is the page containing the content we are looking for. Okay, so web page anatomy is not really something I mentioned it in the last lesson we had. Okay, when I was showing you about HTML and REST, this is how the anatomy of the web page appears to be. You have the HTML. This is the HTML. This is how a basic web page look like with the contents in here. This is how a basic HTML document look like. And if at all you have an external CSS now, we now use the link tag. Normally CSS is called the cascading style sheet. Okay, it's used in styling or making documents look more like decorating documents, making it look more stylish for users, as the name implies. Cascading style sheets used in styling HTML documents. So if at all you have this, you now have the link, you now have the href, and you have the relate, like what is this file, what is this link relative to. Okay, if this is a style sheet, I'll put the address or the web address, the address of my style sheet where it's located. That's the URL of my style sheet. Then I now put here style sheet to tell the browser that this link is actually related to style sheets. It's for styling this document. Okay. Then for the body, the header, I've explained all this in the last class if you check it. So that's it. And I failed to tell you that HTML, the meaning of HTML, the full meaning of HTML now, when I was doing in the last lesson now, I failed to tell you that HTML means hypertext markup language. It's a language used on the internet for HTTP, that is a hypertext transfer protocol, a protocol used in transferring markup languages. Okay, then when we reach JS, which is for JavaScript, okay, which is a scripting language for websites, then you reach PHP, which is also a back-end. It's a scripting website, quite alright, but this is a back-end scripting. The browser has no business with this now. It's just server, and in that server itself, it's the PHP engine itself that passes this PHP. Okay, so that's it for today. I just said I'll try to make this video short. So love you. We'll see in our next class. Our next class will be going more deeper into the HTML aspect, because I've done the basic introduction in your browser, web, and all you need to know, the basic things you need to know about how the web works. Okay, so you please subscribe, click on the subscribe button, subscribe to our page, so that if there are any new updates, you will be informed. Please, thank you very much.